Alrighty, welcome everybody to our podcast today. Today we will be talking about data collection and targeted advertising. I brought with me my friend Andrew. He will be joining me on this conversation.
Woo! Thanks for having me, Joey.
Yeah, no problem, Andrew. I also forgot to introduce myself. My name is Joey. Thanks for the brief introduction, Andrew. I appreciate that. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Let's start with our discussion on casino advertising. That's what I'd like to begin with. When was the last time you got advertised by a casino?
I think just earlier today, I was trying to just have some video on in the background, just as background noise while I was doing some homework. It hit an ad, casino advertisement.
And I'm assuming you're not a big gambler. Like, you don't really like gambling all that much?
No, not really. I think the last time I gambled was with Counter-Strike skins. Never again.
So, you see, that's one of, like, the main issues that I've been getting a lot, too, is getting all these casino ads. And honestly, I really, really do not like them. Because not only are they nothing that I care about, they're also trying to lead me towards something that I don't want to get into, which is gambling, because sorry to break this to everybody, but gambling is not a good thing.
No.
You're going to lose more than you'll win 100% of the time. That's why gambling companies make money, because they win more than they lose. But yeah, it's just not advertised to me, and it's not personalized in any way. And it's kind of just annoying to get gambling ads.
I agree. No matter how many celebrities they put in it, I feel like it's still not something I'm interested in.
Alrighty, so expanding on that note, I would like to talk about how nice it is for things to actually be user-centric.
Okay.
So we live in a world where technology is ever expanding. Everything's like becoming more advanced, more difficult, harder to use. And there are actually people who have jobs out there currently. They're called UX designers or UI designers. And basically their job is to make everything so that it's specific for a user. They pick a user, they design whatever it is for that user, and they have to go through a long process of reiterations and redesigning just to make something so that when a user picks it up, it's all efficient, effective, and the user enjoys using what it is.
Yeah.
So that's one of the fields that I'm actually currently studying in. I'm going into interactive design. I'm currently taking a course on that. And that's one of the things that my teacher talks about, how we're trying to implement into every aspect of life. But like, we can find a couple of examples of that just currently, like your current car, for example, is a good one. What type of car do you drive?
I drive a nice Subaru Forester.
Okay. And why did you buy it, or why did you get that car?
Well, as you know, my previous car totaled itself. And so I was looking for a used car, something I, as a college student, could afford. And that was just something that a friend of my dad's was trying to sell. And so it worked out.
Yeah, so like based off of that little bit of information, basically your car, the circumstances designed it so that your car was made specifically for somebody like of your age, just trying to get back and forth from school. And that's what the hook was for that car. The fact that it was something reliable to get back and forth to school, and it was nice and cheap and affordable, and circumstances just lined up for you to purchase that.
Yeah.
And that's what an interactive designer's goal is, or a UX designer, for like a new car too. They want to make it so that it's affordable for the person, does everything that person needs, and basically, make it user-centric.
Yeah.
And to do so, they need to know a little bit about the users before they can do that. And that's where the whole thing of data collection comes in. It's something so that we can make things specifically for users, so that it's not a matter of just wanting or just like throwing out a random item. Like I could sell you a brand new Bugatti or try to sell you that, but that's not going to get anywhere. You're not going to want it. That's pointless to sell it to you because you can't afford it.
I can't afford it, and it's way more than I need to just commute like 20 minutes to get to school.
Exactly. So if I were to try to actually sell you something that you need and want, I need to know a little bit about your current circumstances. Yeah. You have, a budget of X amount, and you want to just get to school and back, and you don't really care about all these high function interior extras and add-ons that modern cars can sometimes come with. So I would try to sell you something like the used Subaru that you bought, because it would just be nice and cheap. It'll get you there and back. It'll do everything you need, and it achieves its goal. And just knowing your circumstances and knowing a little bit about you, that would tell me that that's what I should properly advertise to you, because that not only helps me sell my product, but it also helps you get what you need.
Exactly. And honestly, that sounds like the way it should be. Instead of receiving advertisements for this, that, the other car, I should only be seeing things for, hey, this fits what you need, this fits what you want.
So that being said, what exactly would you be comfortable with telling like a salesman who's trying to sell you a car? Like how would you go about explaining to him what car you want, why you want it, and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I think the driving reason behind why I got the car I have is because it was cheap. It was a used car that a friend was selling, so it was at a great price. And so I think if I had to explain it to a salesman, I would probably the same things I said, like I'm in college, that already I think shows the financial constraints, and maybe also that I just need it to get to and from school, so that they know that I don't need a car with the spinning rims, the sunroof, all that. Just something that can drive, essentially. Maybe keep me warm in the winter.
Yeah, because you're more concerned about like just getting there back and forth, and you also want to be safe while you're going and commuting, which is why you'd rather not take the bus and you'd rather take a car instead. Well, Google does a lot of the same stuff like that. Like they'll watch your searches, see what you're into, see what you're doing, and they can depict things like that you go to college and such, but they don't know anything other than that. They're just like, all right, this guy's going to college. What does he want? Maybe a credit card. We can try to sell him a credit card, because a lot of college students do like credit cards because they like to raise their credit score. And at that same time, a lot of college students try to avoid credit cards because they don't want to go into any more debt than what they're already in. So it's kind of a 50-50 shot. And that's what Google's constantly trying to do, because they don't know what your interests are, they know somewhat what your interests are, but they don't know like why you like what you like. They just know what you like. And fortunately, there is a thing, like a way around that kind of, because Google does ask you, like, if you like the ads that they're giving you. Whenever they're sending you an ad, there's an option to actually say, I don't want to see this ad anymore. Yeah. And then there's a follow-up to that question. If you click that asks you, why don't you want to see this ad?
I've seen that before, yeah.
And you can say something on the lines of, like, this ad is repetitive, or it's meaningless to me, or anything like that. And using that information, they'll actually take note of that. They're like, oh, this credit card, he thinks credit card ads are repetitive. I've only sent him this one credit card ad once, but clearly he's getting a lot of credit card ads or a lot of, gambling ads and stuff. And he doesn't want to see those anymore, I guess, because he's not interested in gambling. And if he's not interested in gambling and not interested in credit cards, why might that be? Well, he probably likes to save his money a little bit. And if we were to give Google data like that, they could start to piece together certain things to know better what you want. So when they are advertising to you, they're not going to advertise to you the gambling ads, the credit card ads, but they're going to be advertising to you like different banks, perhaps, where it's like, hey, you get an increased interest rate if you put all your money in savings with us.
Yeah. Or like student loan help, or what's the word I'm looking for? Financial aid.
Yeah. Like they'll send you like, this place offers a whole bunch of scholarships to your college. And if I got an ad for that on the side, I'd click it right away.
I want more free money.
It's not a matter of hey, you can gamble to make some money really fast to help pay for college. No, it's a matter of, hey, this place is actually just write up an essay for us and we'll pay for part of your college for you. And the issue is, though, a lot of the times when we click the I don't want to see this ad anymore, we don't click the Y portion. We just say, I don't want to see this ad anymore. And then Google's like, okay, I'll stop sending you that one ad, I suppose. And there's also not enough like other data collection that's being taken. Like it's just taking direct searches that you're making. Like if you search for 25 things, it'll keep track of those 25 things. But if they're just 25 random items, it doesn't know what to piece together from that. But if it knew like why you were searching for those items and you were to actually be able to tell Google why you're searching for those items, they'd be able to piece together a bit more about you so that when they're giving you ads, they'd be much more personalized and much more efficient and beneficial to what you actually want.
And that sounds so much better than every pop-up ad being about, hey, you want to play some roulette online? You could.
All right. So the next thing we should touch on is that data collection can lead to a lot of deception. And, this is something that everybody is aware of. Most people will make this comment when arguing against data collection, is that it leads to more deception than what it's worth. And that can be true, can be false, is sometimes true though. But fortunately for us, Google does have ways around that. They do have there's a tab called misrepresentation for Google, and basically it goes over all of their qualifying like aspects of what the ad is not allowed to do. And it'll blatantly tell you, it says in yellow, I don't speak for Google, but I can tell you what they say here, that they take the violations of the policy very seriously. I'll actually be linking this ad policy somewhere with the podcast. So you guys will be able to read it for yourself too and see all their rules and regulations for advertisements. But they can lead anywhere from a just 7-day suspension from doing any sort of ads after a warning. And then if you do it again, worse stuff happens. But some things lead to immediate bans as well, such as like just scamming users. That just leads to an immediate ban. So
that feels illegal.
It is illegal, yes. That's why it leads to an immediate ban. So fortunately, Google has like policies against that. There's also the ability to report advertisements that you get if you believe that they are false. And Google will go through and actually like review each one that gets reported to ensure that you're actually reporting a false ad and not something that is real, but you
that's good.
I'm
going to report all the... Oh, wait, we can't drop business names.
No.
I'm going to report all the restaurant ads, despite knowing that they're very real chains.
Yeah. For clarification, we're not dropping any business names because we don't want to suffer any like defamation or anything. Since I'm talking good about Google, we're okay.
That's fine. That's fine. So, for clarification, also, what is a false or a deceptive ad? Just to make sure we're all on the same page. It's not just like clickbait, right? Like with internet videos where they might say, pointing and being like, "This is the craziest thing that ever happened. Click here to see."
Yeah. So there's a big difference between like deception and persuasion. And when it comes to advertising, Nath and Gardner, they put it in a really good way. I'll put a link to their article as well. But they give you a definition that says if a consumer believes a claim that is actually false, it is deception. That is like a good summary of what deception is. It's something that has to be not only false, but it also has to be believable in order to truly be something that's deception. Like if they were to say something like, this donut could save your life, it could, in theory, like be considered not deception if put in a way where it was so bizarre what they were saying that just nobody bought it.
Okay. Like
nobody's like, okay, I'll click on that. I'll see what's up with it, but that's definitely not true. And yeah, so in order for it to truly be deception, it not only has to be something that's wrong, it also has to be something believable.
Like claiming that your donut would cure cancer.
Yeah. But at the same time, for another thing that Nath and Gardner said is for a deceptive claim to actually affect the consumer's attitude and behavior, it must be relevant to him. Meaning, using data collection, it is easier for those deceptive ads to like get into the way there and actually be deceptive towards people.
They know I like donuts, so they can advertise the cure to cancer donut to me.
And they know you're at higher risk of cancer too.
That's true.
So yeah, they could advertise that to you, which would be a bit more, it would work a little bit better on you than it would for someone like me, where I'm just like, that's hilarious, and blow it off. So yeah, like I said, data collection does put in a small little point of deception. But I don't think like the main advertiser, who like the person who pushes the ads, I don't think Google has the goal of deceiving its people, just based off of the fact that they have that whole section where they're talking about potential deception and what they will ban people for. And I think if there was more data collection put in, then Google could actually use that data collection to push things that people actually need rather than just things that people want. For example, I actually have a buddy who had like a very rough life. His parents would always like just buy things whenever they would have money for it, and it would end up like being at the point where they would get their tax returns, waste all the money on random new items like new iPhones and stuff. And then at the end of the week, bills would come up and they'd be like, well, shoot, now we don't have any money to pay any of our bills. And if they were advertised to on the internet, they're going to click on the ads because they'll be like, oh, that's cool, I want the new stuff, even though we don't have any money. And it just put them into a financial like down point of way worse than what they need to be. If there was enough data collection, though, Google could actually see that this family struggles with stuff like that. And rather than pushing advertisements that are like, here's the newest phone, you should buy it, it's going to be much better than your current one, or here's the newest game console, you should get that instead, they can push ads like, hey, here's a counselor that'll teach you how to better spend your money. And I know those advertisements exist, and Google gets paid the same amount no matter what based off of the ads, I'm pretty sure, but they get paid based off of whether you view the ad and if you click it. So if they push you an ad that you don't care about, they're not going to get paid for it because nobody's going to click it. But if they push you an ad that you do care about and you click it, they'll get paid for it. But they don't get paid based off of like what product it is that's being sold. They just get paid whether it's clicked and looked at. So they can actually, but anyways, back to this whole counseling thing. There's a lot of counseling ads that are out there, but they're never pushed toward anyone. And that's because the data that gets collected doesn't say that this person likes counseling, because nobody's going out of their way to search for counseling.
That's probably true.
There's a couple of people that might, I suppose, but for the most part, most people don't. And if Google could figure out that this person has bad spending habits, they could push the counseling ads, because that's actually something that the person needs. It would be more personalized for the person and would actually be helpful rather than harmful. And I feel like that would be much better than what we have in our current state here.
Instead of constantly just pushing consumerism.
Yeah. So there's two ends to advertising. Like, yes, Google can advertise things like cars and stuff to someone who's out looking for a car. They can advertise a nice cheap car that does everything that the person needs. But on the other side of the spectrum, they can also be advertising things that the person needs outside of a nice car, like better healthcare plans, better insurance policies, and stuff like that. And I feel like it can better most people if they have more ads that are specific to them than ads that are just generalized, thrown out to the public.
Agreed.
To finish off, I'd like to mention that like data collection is not something to be scary. It's not something that they're going to, well, I can't speak for every platform out there, but for the most part, most advertising platforms, not the advertisers themselves, but the platforms that push the ads, they're not planning to use data collection to just scam people and make them spend their money where they don't want to, because they aren't affected by where you're spending your money. They aren't getting money from you buying someone else's product. They're getting money based off of whether you click the ad, whether you viewed the ad. Sometimes ads will pay them a little bit of money if people are actually buying the ad, but for the most part, that's not where Google and other places are making their money. They're making their money off of you seeing the ad, you wanting the ad, and you clicking on the ad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a sense of morality behind the people who are collecting data and pushing advertisements. They do have their own morals, and they do want, the best advertisements for their people, and the advertisements that not only will people pay the most money on, but also that people will want the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think targeted advertising and data collection is really a scary thing that people need to start fearing in the future. Obviously, I would be wrong to say that I want to push for more of it. I'd say where we are right now and the amount of data that gets collected is a good amount, because you really just get collected based off of every search you do and any information that you directly give the internet as well. Things like Amazon and other companies, they will look at what you buy and give you a recommended page for things that you might like based off of what you've already purchased.
Yeah.
And they pull together a bunch of information from everybody who's bought the same item as you, and they kind of assume that every person is the same. So one of the things that I would rather push for is for targeted advertisement to stop thinking that people are the same and to more so be more specific to every single person.
Yes.
Because currently they're trying to take all the information from all these different places and clump everybody up as one person, which is not true. That is the opposite of user-centric.
Not what you're pushing for here.
Not what we want to push for whatsoever. I'd rather companies and advertising companies realize that every single person is unique and make all their judgments based off of that person alone and not based off of everyone as a crowd. But in order to do so, they would have to collect more data from each individual, because as it stands, they collect data from everyone, so they don't have to collect as much. But if they could collect more from each individual, then they could do more focused on the individual.
Makes sense to me.
And then lastly, I'd like to thank you, Andrew, for joining me on this podcast.
Happy to be here, Joey.
If you have any final thoughts, feel free to mention them at this point in the
I don't think they'd be appropriate for the current topic, so I'll save them for now.
That's great to hear. All right, and with that, I think that's the end of the podcast. Thank you, everybody who tuned in, and goodbye.